There are apparently protesters going around holding flags.
Every day for 10 years, I have been bullied and attacked, and I was the most trolled person in the entire world, man or woman. And I'm still here.
All of this is being supported by the British royal family as part of Operation Thaw.
And have a look at this. We have to fund it. Yes, us hard-working taxpayers have to pay for them.
Australia has once again become the stage where Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's every move is dissected, amplified, and turned into global controversy. But this time, it doesn't feel like just another royal-adjacent tour or another carefully staged series of appearances. It feels louder, sharper, more divided, almost like the entire world is arguing through them.
Good luck getting here. Hopefully your flight doesn't get cancelled.
Yeah, I thought you wanted to keep everything on the down low and private to yourselves, but you're doing the opposite. So, interesting.
And at the center of it all is one sentence that detonated across the internet. Standing before a group of Australian students, Meghan Markle made a claim that instantly ignited global debate. She said she had spent 10 years, every single day, being bullied, and went even further, declaring that she believed she was the most trolled person in the entire world. There was no hesitation in how she said it, no softening, just a blunt, emotional framing of her experience. And for a moment, the room was still.
So a veteran's wife asking for an appearance fee?
It's sick.
But outside that room, the reaction was anything but quiet. Within minutes, social media exploded. Headlines multiplied. Comment sections turned into battlefields. Supporters rushed to defend her, arguing that she was finally naming the reality of relentless online abuse. They pointed to the scale of scrutiny she has faced since entering the royal spotlight. Every outfit analyzed, every expression dissected, every decision turned into controversy. To them, her words were not exaggeration. They were overdue honesty. But critics saw something very different.
Aussies take no bullshit, and it's not working. One woman who was on board Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's Qantas flight told the MSM of the Duchess, "I don't like her at all. Don't come to Australia. You don't belong here. We don't want you here."
They saw a narrative that, in their view, deliberately positions her at the center of global victimhood while ignoring the broader landscape of online abuse experienced by countless public figures, activists, journalists, and even ordinary individuals. They questioned the framing.
A $26,000 watch Meghan wore to a homeless shelter.
Not whether she has been criticized, but whether most trolled in the world is a meaningful or credible claim in a digital age where harassment is widespread, unpredictable, and often far more severe for people without protection or platform. And that's where the split deepens, because in today's attention economy, perception becomes reality faster than facts can catch up. One sentence becomes a headline becomes identity, and identity becomes ammunition.
Now, why are they coming, you might ask? Well, that is a great question. I don't know why they're even bothering, because the last time they came in 2018, Meghan had that dreadful sourpuss face on the whole time, and then claimed the Australia tour was the catalyst for her and the spare to leave the royal family. She hated every second, apparently, and found the trip, quote, pointless.
For Meghan, this moment adds yet another layer to an already polarizing public image, one that oscillates between sympathy and skepticism depending on who is watching. And just as the conversation around her comments began to settle into predictable lines of defense and criticism, Prince Harry stepped into a different but equally charged debate. Because while Meghan was making headlines for her comments on online bullying, Prince Harry was simultaneously praising Australia's decision to introduce strict under-16 social media restrictions, calling it epic leadership during a discussion on digital safety.
There is a go-to playbook move in PR. And when you are trying to deflect from negative coverage, when you are trying to shame people into not asking questions, you hide behind philanthropy.
On the surface, it sounded like a straightforward endorsement of online protection for young people. But even that quickly became part of the broader narrative surrounding the couple. Supporters framed Harry's comments as responsible and forward-thinking, an attempt to address the very environment that fuels online abuse. Critics, however, saw contradiction. A couple frequently tied to global digital visibility, now praising restrictions on the very platforms that helped shape their public campaigns and personal brand. Two narratives, two interpretations, one highly charged media cycle. And in the middle of it all, every word becomes symbolic. Even the smallest details surrounding their appearances are now pulled into that same orbit of interpretation.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle decided to pick a fight with the Australian media in regards to their security arrangements.
At one point during the tour, attention drifted towards something unexpectedly mundane, but instantly viral. Mama-themed clothing references circulating in commentary and social media discussions around Meghan's branding direction. What might once have been dismissed as background noise is now treated as part of a larger story: identity, image, and commercial positioning. This mama on the shirt messaging also feels less like an offhand personal detail and more like a deliberate image shift, an attempt to reframe Meghan as relatable, grounded, and deliberately detached from any remaining royal aura, even as she continues building a commercial ecosystem where lifestyle, identity, and influence are increasingly monetized as one seamless brand strategy.
Australians in uproar over the most revolting fake royal tour the world has ever seen.
Because nothing around them exists in isolation anymore. Every detail is connected. Every gesture is analyzed for intent. That perception only intensified when discussions turned to Meghan's evolving public image and wardrobe strategy. Observers have noted how frequently her outfits change across appearances, with some suggesting this reflects not just stylistic evolution, but a calculated branding ecosystem.
Oh, Meghan doesn't want to be selling her outfits. She only really wants to push things that are meaningful for her. She has no commercial interest. That's out the window.
Her fashion choices, once simply celebrity curiosity, are now viewed through a commercial lens, especially following reports and discussions around her involvement in platforms that allow audiences to shop curated looks and replicate her style. To supporters, this represents modern influence, turning visibility into entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship into empowerment. To critics, it signals something more transactional, an image carefully constructed, monetized, and continuously rebranded in real time. And once again, the truth depends entirely on where you stand. But nothing has generated quite the same split reaction as Meghan's surprise appearance on MasterChef Australia.
Forget changing the world. Meghan's now showing up on Australian MasterChef for a big fat check.
Because while the tour was already under intense scrutiny, this moment introduced a different kind of cultural friction: celebrity, authority, and credibility colliding in a brightly lit kitchen set. Meghan Markle's secret MasterChef appearance was framed as a special guest moment, but it quickly became one of the most debated elements of the entire visit. The reaction, even within the Australians, was immediate and polarized. Fans celebrated the appearance as charismatic and unexpected. They saw it as Meghan stepping into entertainment culture with confidence, embracing lifestyle branding and aligning with her established interests in food, wellness, and media production.
You know what? This actually surprised me. I wasn't expecting her to go on television.
Neither was I, and this marks her full moment conversion, in my eyes, from Duchess to lifestyle influencer.
Clips circulated showing her entering the set, smiling, waving, and greeting contestants. For supporters, it reinforced her image as a modern media figure who thrives outside traditional royal constraints. But critics were equally vocal and far less forgiving. Across social media, questions flooded in about relevance and credibility. Some asked why a former royal would be positioned as a guest judge on a competitive cooking show. Others questioned whether celebrity status alone was replacing expertise, and whether the program was sacrificing culinary legitimacy for attention and ratings.
This is the moment where she's really commercializing herself. She wants to be a lifestyle brand. She's using the name Duchess, and we saw her introduced as the Duchess of Sussex.
Comments ranged from disbelief to frustration. Some viewers explicitly rejected the idea of non-chefs being placed in judging roles. Others referenced her previous lifestyle and cooking-related media appearances, using them as ammunition in a broader critique of her brand direction. And then came another layer: confusion over status. Some viewers openly questioned why she was still being referred to as Duchess, reflecting ongoing public misunderstanding and debate about her formal role after stepping back from royal duties. Yet even in the negativity, there was a countercurrent. Supporters defended her presence strongly, praising her visibility, warmth, and perceived authenticity.
Not actually a day of rest for Meghan. She's been busy filming MasterChef as a guest judge. Not sure if she cooked anything other than a succulent appearance fee.
Some framed her involvement as a positive crossover between entertainment and advocacy, suggesting she brings a different energy to traditional formats. A few even drew emotional comparisons to iconic public figures of the past, elevating her appearance into something symbolic rather than procedural. But the comments like, "I would rather an actual chef, not this wannabe who elevates the kitchen by putting pretzels from a store-bought bag into a see-through bag," or "another reason not to watch MasterChef," just kept going. That is what makes this moment so volatile.
And have a look at this. A former politician here in Sydney has just revealed that when Harry toured an upgraded war memorial on that trip, there were rumours that she had asked if she would be getting an appearance fee.
Because it is no longer just about a television cameo. It is about what she represents to different audiences. To some, Meghan's MasterChef appearance is strategic PR, another carefully placed step in a long-term transformation into a lifestyle brand, where visibility is currency and every platform is an opportunity for expansion. To others, it is simply evolution, celebrity adapting to modern media, where boundaries between roles no longer exist in the way they once did.
Disrespected this country, disrespected the Queen, and the entire royal family. We don't want you here, Meghan, and we don't want you here, Harry.
But in Australia, where the tour is unfolding in real time, both interpretations are colliding daily, and the result is a narrative that refuses to settle. Every statement becomes a headline, every appearance becomes a debate, and as the tour continues, one thing becomes increasingly clear. This is no longer just about Meghan Markle or Prince Harry as individuals. It is about what they have become in the public imagination. And in that space, nothing they do can remain just what it is. And in Australia right now, that storm is spinning around Harry and Meghan like it's been deliberately engineered to do exactly that. Provoke emotion, capture sympathy, and dominate every frame of the story. Because strip away the polished photos, the carefully timed appearances, the smiling hospital visits, and what you're left with is a question that keeps getting louder in the background. Is this compassion or choreography?
Australians already have the measure of this woman. Australians know what Meghan Markle is about. Look at this.
What are your thoughts on Harry and Meghan coming to Australia?
They're coming to Australia? Are they?
Yeah, I don't care.
Are they here?
I didn't know they were. I've got no idea they're coming. Nor do I care.
The most uncomfortable criticism being thrown around is not about speeches or outfits or even their royal status. It's about optics. Specifically, the repeated use of highly emotional environments, hospitals, vulnerable children, homelessness outreach, as backdrops for visibility. Are they using them as a PR props? Every visit is carefully lit with human suffering and softened by staged warmth, but critics are increasingly asking whether these moments are being used as humanitarian engagement or narrative shielding.
We are being subjected to fraudulence. This is just fakery. This is ridiculous. It's the most bizarre, weird thing I've ever seen.
Because the pattern is hard to ignore. A visit to sick children instantly reframes the entire public mood. A stop at a homeless service instantly disarms criticism. It becomes very difficult to question anything else when the images circulating are designed to be untouchable. And that's exactly why the backlash is so sharp. Some argue that these settings shouldn't function as PR armor at all. And in that tension, the word tour becomes almost ironic, because what's unfolding doesn't resemble a traditional royal tour, nor even a straightforward humanitarian visit. It feels hybrid. Half charity optics, half media strategy, half brand expansion. And that mathematical impossibility is what's making people uneasy. The lines are blurred on purpose, or at least that's what critics insist.
Young Australian children suffering from terminal illnesses in some cases have been used to try and rehabilitate not themselves, but the reputation of the dastardly Sussexes.
Then comes the second layer, money. While the public-facing moments lean heavily on empathy and connection, behind them sits a parallel conversation about paid appearances, speaking engagements, branded initiatives, and private commercial structures. That contrast, emotional visibility on one side, monetized activity on the other, is exactly where accusations of performative philanthropy start to form. Supporters call it independence, critics call it packaging, and hovering above all of it is the monarchy-shaped shadow they no longer officially belong to, yet somehow still orbit constantly. Titles remain, attention remains, association remains, and with every appearance in Commonwealth-linked spaces like Australia, that tension reignites. Are they stepping away from the institution, or are they reactivating its visual language whenever it benefits them?
This is a commercial endeavor, looking like royalty, visiting hospitals, taking selfies with children, overly engaged with young children who don't know any better, using them to help your profile.
Because the imagery is unmistakable. Formal welcomes, hospital visits, community engagements. It all echoes the structure of official royal duty, even if the status behind it is no longer there. And that contradiction is where the faux royale narrative takes hold for some observers. The aesthetics of royalty without the constitutional role. Then there's Harry's praise for Australia's social media restrictions for under-16s, calling it epic leadership. On the surface, it's a comment about digital safety. But in the broader context, it lands differently, as part of a wider push into moral authority territory, mental health, online harm, youth protection, themes that align neatly with their public identity.
When you understand the sort of the Machiavellian PR moves behind it, that's so cynical, and to exploit these children like that and force them to meet Harry and Meghan. I mean, haven't these kids suffered enough?
Critics, however, see something more strategic, a consistent positioning around socially sensitive issues that naturally generate goodwill. And while all of that plays out, Meghan's own headline, the claim of being the most trolled person in the world, becomes another lightning rod. Supporters interpret it as a raw admission of sustained online abuse. Detractors see something else entirely, a competitive framing of victimhood that inevitably triggers pushback in a world where online harassment is widespread across countless public figures who don't have platforms or protection to amplify their experience. The result is polarization at maximum volume. Every statement becomes a referendum. Every appearance becomes evidence for two completely opposite interpretations of the same reality.
Harry and Meghan's tour of Australia this week is set to be the blueprint for a return trip to Britain. Insiders say the trip to Oz, where the King is head of state and royal news makes headlines, will be a dummy run and testing ground for a potential joint tour of the UK.
The backlash was immediate and loud. Questions about relevance, qualifications, timing, and intent. Why this show? Why now? Why another carefully staged media appearance during an already high-profile trip? Because to skeptics, it doesn't look like coincidence. It looks like placement. Strategic visibility in yet another controlled environment where reactions are guaranteed, filmed, clipped, and distributed globally within hours. And underneath all of it sits the final unavoidable theme, perception management.
Not surprised that Australians are going, well, what the hell are you doing here? What is this all about? That they're bemused, and of course they're also angry because, of course, the police are having to organize protection for this couple wherever they go, and that costs long-suffering Australian taxpayers.
Every stop on this tour produces images that feel engineered for circulation. Every interaction is instantly converted into narrative ammunition for both admiration and criticism. And the more polished the output becomes, the more divided the reaction grows. To supporters, it's resilience in a hostile media ecosystem. To critics, it's branding dressed as benevolence. And somewhere in between those two extremes sits the uncomfortable reality of modern public life, where attention is currency, empathy is content, and every appearance, no matter how genuine it feels in the moment, is immediately absorbed into a global argument that never really ends. There's something about this Australia trip that doesn't sit comfortably if you zoom out far enough from the glossy surface.
Harry, what's happening? What? He's a Suits fan. He's a Suits fan.
On paper, it's meant to be a blend of humanitarian engagement, public appearances, and speaking commitments. But the way it's unfolding feels less like a simple visit and more like a tightly stage-managed sequence of emotionally loaded scenes designed for maximum visibility. Because again and again, the visual language is the same. Vulnerable environments, high emotion settings, carefully framed moments of proximity to hardship, hospitals, shelters, community spaces where the human element is raw and unfiltered. And every time, the cameras are there at just the right angle, just the right moment, capturing exactly what will circulate fastest online. That's where the discomfort starts to build for critics. Not in the fact that these places are being visited, but in how consistently they are used as the emotional centerpiece of the narrative.
Meghan Markle had asked for an appearance fee to attend a veterans event.
It creates a kind of optical imbalance, where the suffering of others becomes the stage, and the public-facing figures become the focal point of meaning. And in that environment, even the smallest details get magnified. Clothing choices, accessories, timing of arrivals, tone of interaction, everything becomes part of the interpretive battlefield. A watch, a dress, a smile, a gesture. Suddenly, nothing is neutral anymore. Everything is symbolic, everything is read as intention. That's why the backlash has been so intense in some corners. Because once you frame repeated appearances in emotionally sensitive spaces as part of a broader image strategy, even genuine moments start to look staged to those already skeptical.
Beauty influencer disinvited from Meghan Markle's retreat over media history.
The line between being present and being positioned gets blurry very quickly. Then there's the question of structure. These events don't happen in isolation. They sit alongside speaking engagements, media partnerships, and monetized appearances that form a parallel layer to the trip, one that isn't emotional but transactional. And the tension between those two layers is exactly what fuels the controversy. Compassion on one side, commercial reality on the other, both operating at the same time. That contradiction is what people keep circling back to, because it produces an awkward dual perception, a public-facing narrative of service and advocacy, and an underlying business logic that is impossible to ignore once you start looking for it.
Before she entered the area with the children, Meghan Markle had said just 4 words. Let's make this quick. What a humanitarian she is! Not.
Whether that's fair or not depends entirely on where you stand, but the friction between those interpretations is very real. And then comes the broader question that keeps surfacing in the background: influence. Not formal authority, but soft influence. The kind that comes from familiarity with institutional formats, ceremonial aesthetics, and the lingering recognition that still follows them around long after leaving royal duties. It creates situations where their presence automatically carries weight, even without official status. That's where accusations of quasi-royal behavior tend to emerge, because the imagery often resembles something official, even when it technically isn't.
He was close to snapping, and then he realized, oh goodness, I'm on camera, I can't do that. Watch.
Harry, do your kids like the Wiggles?
The Wiggles?
Yeah.
Do the propeller.
At the same time, supporters argue this is precisely what makes their work effective: the ability to draw attention to causes that otherwise wouldn't get global coverage. But critics counter that attention itself is the currency being exchanged, and that the emotional settings are what make that currency valuable. And hovering over all of it is the performance layer, the sense that every appearance is not just experienced, but also immediately translated into content. Photos, clips, headlines, reactions. The moment stops belonging to the room it happened in and starts belonging to the internet. That's the modern tension at the heart of it. Nothing is just an event anymore. Everything is a signal.
What's your message to the people who have come to see you? Look at you. Paul, your name's Paul, right? It's Paul. You're still smiling.
Are we friends?
Yes, we are.
And in that kind of environment, even sincerity becomes something people argue about rather than something they simply perceive. So the Australia trip becomes less about one visit, or one engagement, or one statement, and more about what happens when visibility, emotion, and branding all occupy the same space at once, and no one can quite agree anymore where one ends and the other begins. You could feel it before anything even happened. That uneasy buzz in the air, like the whole thing was less about compassion and more about choreography. Every stop, every smile, every handshake suddenly gets dragged under a microscope, and what's left on the table isn't charity at all, but optics. And the most uncomfortable accusation thrown around? That the most vulnerable people in the room, sick children, families in crisis, even the visibly struggling, are being turned into background scenery for a carefully staged image reset.
Would you pay $3,000 to see Meghan on Coogee Beach?
No, I wouldn't.
I'd rather put that in my face.
No.
No. What's she going to talk about?
Well, I mean, if she thinks that that's what she's worth, good on her.
Do you like the Royals?
Yeah, they're all right.
Oh, they don't bother me.
We don't know much about them, to be honest, but they're cool. I went to Buckingham Palace.
That's where it gets ugly fast. Because once you start hearing phrases like, "let's make this quick," allegedly said in a children's hospital corridor, it stops sounding like a heartfelt visit and starts sounding like a production schedule. Critics latch onto it immediately, not just as a comment, but as a symbol of impatience where there should be presence, of image management where there should be silence, care, and time. And suddenly the entire visit gets reframed, not as outreach, but as a performance passing through suffering on its way to the next camera angle. Then comes the louder wave, the outrage cycle.
And have a look at this. We have to fund it. Yes, us hard-working taxpayers have to pay for them to have police, even though this is a private tour. You got to be kidding me.
It's gross. It's totally gross.
Social media erupts, commentators pile in, and every detail becomes ammunition. The clothing, the timing, the security arrangements, the media access. Even the idea of taxpayer involvement gets dragged into the fire, turned into a talking point about entitlement and blurred lines between public duty and private branding. Nothing stays neutral in this environment. Everything becomes evidence of something bigger, something more cynical, and the most repeated word in all of it isn't even charity anymore. It's use. People accusing. People insisting that those who are meant to be helped are instead being positioned. Sick kids as emotional leverage. Hospital visits as reputational repair kits. Even the most sensitive environments get reframed as stages where image rehabilitation quietly takes priority over genuine engagement. Whether that interpretation is fair or not, it's the narrative that keeps sticking. And once it sticks, it spreads like smoke.
The Sussexes are facing backlash over the cost of their trip to taxpayers.
What makes it more explosive is the contrast. The smiling photos outside, the polished greetings, the perfectly timed waves to cameras. All of it sits right next to these claims of awkward exchanges and transactional energy behind closed doors. That contrast is what fuels the outrage machine. People aren't just reacting to what they see, they're reacting to what they think must be happening when the cameras cut away. And then, almost inevitably, the conversation shifts from what happened to what it means. Not just a visit anymore, but a symbol. Not just individuals moving through public engagements, but a debate about authenticity, privilege, and whether modern royal-style visibility can ever truly separate service from self-promotion.
Here's the real reason why these two have dropped their walkabouts, because there are apparently protesters going around holding flags saying, "Abolish the House of Sussex."
By the end of it, nothing feels simple. Even goodwill gets questioned. Even charity gets interrogated. And whether you believe the accusations or not, one thing is undeniable. Every appearance now lands inside a storm that is already waiting for it, ready to turn every gesture into either proof of sincerity or proof of deception. And in that kind of atmosphere, there are no neutral moments left. And honestly, this is only getting messier by the day. That's exactly why I'm going to keep dropping the latest videos as this unfolds. Because this story is clearly not slowing down, it's escalating in real time. If anything, it's becoming one of those situations where what happens off camera is starting to matter just as much as what's being shown on it. So if you don't want to miss anything, make sure you subscribe to Crown Clash. Stay in the loop, because the next update could shift the whole picture again. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you think is really going on behind all of this, because everyone's seeing it slightly differently, and that's where it gets interesting. And hit that like button as well. It literally costs nothing, but it helps push these updates further so more people can see what's happening. And as always, I'll catch you in the next one.